Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 968A, and today's date is May 11th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, It's Begun Countries Are Moving Away from the US Dollar by Loading Up on Gold. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we see the market is down once again. Yesterday it was up, now it's down, and it looks like the market is fluctuating and it's actually going absolutely nowhere. But what's more interesting is that gold, it has shot back up. Now, they tried to suppress it twice in the past couple of days, but gold has shot up once again. And this is showing us that gold is moving up. It's trending up. Now, what's very interesting is Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, they're saying that gold is in a bear market right now. Just the other day, Goldman was saying that, gold is going to be going down to $1,000. But it looks like at this point, all the manipulation, it's just not going to do it. So they had to reverse cover all their shorts. And now they're saying that gold is moving in an upward trend. Very interesting. And what we're going to see is as they lose more and more control of the gold market, because a lot of people are looking at this situation and saying, okay, I need to take my money out of the market. I need to protect myself and put it into gold. And this is what people are doing at this point. Because people are getting nervous and they know gold and silver are a safe haven. This is why Russia, China, and many other countries have been loading up on gold. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this report. But let's go to retail at this time. Now, we've been talking about the retail market, how it's contracting. And it is getting worse and worse as we move throughout this year, just like we thought it was going to be. Macy's right now, it looks like they're getting in line with JCPenney, Sears, where the entire system of their operating stores is just collapsing on each other. And the reason for all of this is that consumers, they're not spending their money. And what we're seeing right now is that Macy's is slashing its outlook, and they've cited that it's because consumers are not spending. They couldn't say the weather. They couldn't say, their stores are not facing east or whatever they're going to use. They finally had to come out and say, listen, the people are just not spending right now. There's something going on. I mean, it's very odd that they'd be saying this at this time because the Fed, the president, they're out there telling us that the economy is doing absolutely fine. So again, somebody's lying. And their sales have plunged by 6.1%. And it doesn't look good. I mean, sales are down. Revenue is down. We see wholesale clothing inventory to sales is skyrocketing. And when we look at other stores, and we mentioned Old Navy, Banana Republic, Gap, we see other stores are going to be reporting their earnings coming up very soon. Fossil right now came out and said, okay, their sales have declined by 9% year over year. And we're going to see a lot of stores come out and they're going to give us horrific numbers. And what this means is there's going to be more people going to be laid off. Now, this might not show up in the initial jobless claims because you have to remember how they calculate this. Those people that are working retail, if they're working under 25 or 30 hours, they're not getting paid a certain number of dollars, and each state is different, they're just not counted. They're counted as having a full-time, but when they get laid off or the store closes, they're not counted as losing their job, depending on how many hours they work and how many dollars they make. So the whole thing is kind of backwards here. But we're going to see a further contraction in retail. We're going to see a further contraction in the number of people employed. And we've been seeing this up to this point. Now, when we look at the entire economy, and we've been looking at this for quite a while, and we can see that the entire economy is contracting. Actually, it's accelerating at this point. Now, I know there might be people out there still that don't believe, but for those people who really think that the economy is doing well, I would suggest one thing. Start prepping now. That's my advice to you. Yes, you can argue all over the place, do your quotes saying how the economy's doing perfectly well. I believe the president. But my advice to you from everything that I've been looking at and from what you've been seeing all along, because it's getting harder and harder to argue this point that the economy is doing well, I would start making preparations. You can do it quietly so you don't have to admit that you were wrong, but I would start doing it. And I'm not doing this because I don't wish anything bad on anyone. I would like everyone to be prepared and ready for this and to weather this storm. Now, let's look at some other data here. And it's going to show that this economy is contracting rapidly, and we don't have much time here because they're going to lose control eventually. And we know they want to bring down the economy on their own, of course, to blame it on others. But what we're seeing right now is that total business sales, they've been declining for nearly 2 years right now. And they're about 15% lower than they were in 2014. The inventory to sales ratio is now back to near where it was during the depths of the last recession. What does this mean? There's lots and lots of unsold stuff just sitting around out there. And this is a sign of a very unhealthy economy. Corporate earnings, they have declined for 4 consecutive quarters. This never happens outside a recession. Profits for companies, listed on the S&P 500, they are down 7.1% during the first quarter of 2016 when you compare them to the same time period of last year. In April, commercial bankruptcies were up 32%, and Chapter 11 filings were up 67% on a year-over-year basis. And we've talked about rail traffic. It is down 11%. And what we're seeing right now is that the U.S. economy has lost an astounding 191,000 mining jobs since 2014. Challenger Gray Christmas is saying that 35% more jobs were cut during April than they did in March. So far this year, the job cut announcements are running at 24% above the exact period in 2015. The U.S. GDP, it only grew at 0.5% in 2016. This was the third time in a row that GDP number has declined. And what we're seeing right now is that this economy, no matter what the president says, no matter what statistical numbers they throw at us, it's contracting. And it's contracting very, very quickly right now. The Baltic Dry Index, it has dropped to 579 points. It's down 15 points. And this Baltic Dry Index, we know it's seasonal, but what we're seeing right now is that every time it moves up in these seasonal areas, it's not making higher highs. Actually, what's happening is the Baltic Dry Index is making newer lows, and the trend is down. And if you look at the Baltic Dry Index graph, you can see that the trend is going further and further downward. And at this point, manufacturing is a disaster. Retail is a disaster. And we are seeing signs that housing is in a state where it's going to start spreading across the country, where all of a sudden people are going to see housing prices plummet. Housing staying on the market longer and longer. I'm already seeing it. Do you know where I used to live, and during the worst time of the housing crisis, there are people trying to sell their home and their prices are lower during this recovery than back in the time when real estate bottomed out? What does this tell you? And I looked around the country and I'm starting to see this all over the place. It's going to be like a domino effect. And I know people are going to say, well, in my area, everything is fine. Yes, everything was fine in many other areas. And it took 8 to 9 months to reach those areas. And when it reached it, it was a complete disaster, worse than anyone could have imagined. And that happened in South Florida. That happened in Arizona. We saw it in California. And this time, it's going to be much worse. We're seeing that central banks right now and countries, the demand for gold has renewed worldwide. Now, why is this? Well, what we're hearing right now is that countries and the central banks of those countries, they are loading up on gold to diversify from the US dollar. We know that China, Russia, they've been doing it, but we're starting to see many nations. And what they're doing is they're taking their US dollars and they're trading it in for gold. I don't like to say purchase, because what you're doing is you're taking paper and ink, a note, and trading it in for a hard asset. And the demand for central banks and countries, it has increased by 28% from January through March compared to the same time period last year. So people are moving away from the dollar. They're not even looking to go into other currencies. They're going into hard assets. And this is what everyone should be doing at this point. Now, we know we're coming into this collapse phase. And a lot of people talk about global reset. We know the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, they keep talking about global reset, global reset. They're not going to talk about collapse because that doesn't sound too good. Global reset sounds much better. But the elites, they never really go into detail of what the reset means. Sometimes they let certain things slip, and you get a general picture of what they're talking about. But what we're seeing is the central bankers, they ultimately want to erase the US dollar as the world reserve currency. That's their ultimate goal. And what they want to do is they want to replace it with the IMF's special drawing rights, or maybe something else. And this was outlined in the Rothschilds run magazine, The Economist, in 1988. And the other thing they want to do is they want to consolidate economic governance, moving away from a franchise system of national central banks into a single global monetary authority. And this might be under the IMF, it could be under the BIS, but this is what they're talking about when they talk about a one world government, a one world central bank. And what we're going to do is, what they're going to do is they're going to have a crisis, and it could be a black swan, a major event, a cyber attack. Could be anything. Doesn't matter really what it is. We're going to have a crisis where the entire economy collapses. Now, we know this entire collapse, everything that they're going to be telling us, was completely planned from the beginning. This is not that it just came out of the blue. We all know that they want to bring down the economy. They want to make it look like someone else made it happen. But we know it was planned. Now, we know when this happens, there's going to be chaos. They want chaos, believe me. They want riots. Why do you think they've been loading up on riot gear? Why do you think they have the EU police? Why do you think the US have been preparing for some type of civil disturbance? Why do you think the White House is extending their fences 5 feet higher? Why do you think the governments around the world are placing more armed personnel in front of government buildings? Well, there's a reason for it. Because they know there's going to be chaos. And we know that normal supply chains and services, they're going to be frozen. Credit's going to be frozen. And what the central bankers are going to do, what the U.S. government's going to do, is they're going to offer an increased centralization and control to make things better. And they're going to say it's going to be in the hands of the few, which is going to be one government and a central bank. And of course, they're going to say, well, the banks and the bankers, they're not to blame whatsoever. And they're going to push toward globalization and a one world economic governance. They're going to push for a cashless society, which would mark the end of all privacy and trade and everything else. And the global reset will not result in a collapse of government. Well, what it will do, it will make the government grow in power. This is their plan, because the government has to take care of the people. And of course, there's going to be those people that scream out for the government to take care of them. Because if you notice, they've been trying to get it into people's heads that the government here is to take care of you. You can't start a business on your own, and if you are successful, Obama says you're just lucky. You just lucked out. But the only way you can be successful is with the government. They help you. Oh, here's a handout. Here's an Obama phone. They've been training people to believe that the government, they're the ones who are going to help. And this is what they're going to do at this point. And this is their master plan. A one government system, a central bank. Of course, they're going to try to remove your rights. And they're going to control everything. Unless we band together and stop it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.